All right. Oh, that's a lot of quad. A lot of quad there. How to win your salary cap draft, probably. So not the usual setup right now in the basement, in the workout room. Let's make a fantasy video. All right, today we're gonna talk about how you can crush your salary draft. It's the best way to play fantasy football. If you're not in a salary cap league, you need to find a way to play fantasy football where you have a salary cap draft. How do you win a salary cap draft? I'm glad you asked. Well, it's pretty simple. What you have to do to win a salary cap draft is to find value. You're gonna need to find a player that's gonna score more points than the budget you spent on that player. If you're gonna win a fantasy championship, you need to find this year's Cooper Kupp. Now, obviously, if you compare a player like Jonathan Taylor, you're gonna have to pay a lot more money than a player like Cam Akers. So finding the value that you think is gonna be best for your team. You're gonna have to have some strategies in the back of your mind going into your salary cap draft that you might wanna keep in mind for when you start to draft. Now, I don't think you should have any one of these particularly in your mind set in stone as to what you're gonna do before your draft, because it's gonna change. Some of your league mates may bid up certain players and not others that you really like, and that may change your strategy. So be fluid and have a couple of these strategies in your back pocket. But just know that our main goal here is to find value. The first strategy we'll talk about is studs and duds. And I definitely like this approach because you know you're getting certain players that are going to produce for you. Let's say you spend a third of your budget on Christian McCaffrey, 20% of your budget on Travis Kelce, and 28% on Ja'Marr Chase. These are just fake numbers. Let's say that's what it cost you. That means that you only have 19% to fill out the rest of your roster. Now, you're going to win at those three positions almost every week, but you're really gonna have to do your homework and research some values that you're gonna get with the rest of your roster. Filling out the rest of your roster for budget players, if you're confident in your ability to find value for these lesser players, then go ahead and do studs and duds. All right, a lot of people go with the balanced approach. I haven't really gone with the balanced approach very often. Sometimes when I do this, I feel like I'm waiting and waiting on players that are gonna have value, and then it just never comes and I never make that big spend. But the balanced approach is one that's pretty safe. Let's say, for example, that you're gonna spend 35% of your budget on running backs, another 30% on your wide receivers, and then you're gonna spend another 20% on the onesie positions, quarterbacks and tight ends. In this case, you're pretty much balancing out your starting lineup, and then you're saving 15 to 20% for your bench spot. This is a pretty common approach, and you're basically just waiting on value. I'm going to segue this into referencing a video that I made last year about tier-based drafting. Now, that video that I made last year was about snake drafts. But if you're doing a salary cap draft, you're going to want to tier yours as well because of this reason. Let's say you're going with a balanced approach, but you're quickly running out of your first tier of either wide receiver or running back. You do not want to get into the position where you're having to overpay because you waited until the very end of a tier to bid up a certain player. It sometimes pays to have some cojones and just go and get a player first in that tier. You set the market, and perhaps you get a steal because you're the first person to get that player in a certain tier. Two other strategies that we can talk about that you may want to implement are zero RB and hero RB. Now, it depends on if you're in a PPR, if you're in a 3 wide receiver league. All of these are definitely going to make a difference in what you do. But basically, zero RB is when you don't spend a lot of your budget on running backs. Let's say that you start your draft with Ja'Marr Chase, Deebo Samuel, and CeeDee Lamb. Well, that's awesome. You've got the best receiving core in the entire league. You've probably also spent about 70% or more of your budget on those 3 players. That means that your running backs are gonna have to be really cheap and really late round guys that would go in a snake draft, like Melvin Gordon, maybe like a Rashad Penny, players that are gonna get some run early, but they're probably gonna fizzle out somewhere through the midway point of the year. This is something you have to consider. Do you feel like you're good enough on the waiver wire? Are you good enough in maybe trades to acquire 2 running back assets throughout the year? Because you have to start 2 running backs every single week. One of my favorite strategies is the hero RB strategy. This is where you get 1 running back from the top, I would say 1 or 2 tiers, and then you get excellent pass catching options on your team. Let's say you go hero RB and you pay up for Dalvin Cook. He's the only running back that you pay up for, and you spend the rest of your budget going after high quality pass catchers. So let's say you start with Dalvin Cook, but then you also get CeeDee Lamb and Deebo Samuel. Now, once again, these 3 players are probably gonna be about 70% of your budget. But now, instead of having to go basically super shallow at running back, you can wait and get a Rashad Penny as your RB2, and then you only have to piece together one of those running back positions as you go on throughout the year. The last one, and probably the most important, is to consider your league history. Who are the guys that you're playing with? Who was bidded up in previous years? Who do you think is going to get bid up high this year? Those are the guys you're going to want to nominate first. Let everyone else who's a huge Bengals fan bid up Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and you can sit back and wait for the values to come later. You need to know, do people pay up for that top tier running back? Know your league history, go back, look at what you did in the previous years, and then adjust accordingly. So that's a salary cap draft, guys. It's been fun making these videos. Hopefully I can make a couple more. See you, Loaf.